So it's going to be a green project about Halifax. Simultaneously, it's going to be about Birmingham. I'm doing exactly this next week down in Birmingham. And I was, the other night, banging on about it to Karen and telling her about it, how it's different to previous green projects. By the way, if you've been involved in my projects before, and some of you have been involved in a few, it's not the same. And so Karen said something to me that she says quite frequently. She said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And so I've added something to the start of this. I've not gone mad. I'm going to do, in conclusion, a summary at the very beginning, not at the end. So, and Karen told me this works. Here's a summary of the project. We're going to photograph Halifax. We're going to do it as a team. We're going to do it over a year. That year is next year, 2023. There will be 5 shoots. This project is divided into 5 kind of headings where you look at different things. So it'll go on through the year. The first will be of roads. You'll get what I'm talking about in a minute on that one. You will choose your road. You're going to photograph a road. Each person will make a photo essay of their road, whatever they've chosen, meaning a small set of photographs. But if you're a writer, and I do have some writers in here, then you'll do a single piece of writing, whether that's prose or poetry, about the road. Okay, that is the overall conclusion and summary. But there's a lot behind this. I've been preparing this for a year. So what I'm going to talk through is what's a green project? Because there's a couple of people in there, a few people who haven't worked on a green project before. I'm going to do a very quick summary of what a green project's about. I'm going to talk about writing, because that's new. What's this project rather than what's a green project? This one's a bit different. And then the mechanics of it, how it all works. So starting off with what's a green project? I've got a mission statement. We've had this all the way back since 2003 when the first project was done. 2002. Oh, that's 20 years. And before that, 2002. The Green Project is a collaborative venture, that's us, which aims to make a meaningful statement about an environment by adopting a systematic approach. What does this place look like? What does this place feel like? The grid, because we kind of work into rules, the grid imposes a system that may sometimes locate the picturesque, but is just as likely to find the industrial, the rugged, the new, old, boring, threatening, or just ugly. This is motivated by me spending my career doing advertising and graphics and selling things and taking photographs where the number one objective on all the photographs was make this look good. It's not necessarily what it's all about when you just make things look good. And I want to make more meaningful statements about a place by photographing what it is, what it's about, what it feels like overall, rather than just making it look good. So as an example, this is how the Green Project has worked. This is a Green Project done in 2015 that some of you were involved in Halifax. So a map of Halifax with a grid put over it, and that grid corresponds to OS, the grid on the OS maps, subdivided, and each point, each red dot on there becomes a place where a photographer has to go and take a photograph. And it throws up things that you wouldn't probably photograph if you just cherry picked all the pretty stuff. So, 4 examples. Here's one by Nathan Buckley at Snake Hill Wood near B&Q. Just happened to be right next to a fallen tree. St George's Crescent at Lee Mount by Kathy and Mike Harper. Very pretty, that one, I think. Very Halifax, actually. It's got that massive landmark of the chimney and that church on Boothtown Road. Love it. Now, this is perhaps a bit more prosaic, a bit more, but it's normal. This is familiar to anybody. This kind of scene that knows Halifax. And of course, it's actually probably got just as much aesthetic content as that one in the textures and the tones and so forth. And the last one, my favourite photo from the whole grid, the most southeasterly point on that last Halifax grid, was taken at Bank Top by Courtney, who went up there at 2 a.m. in the rain and fog into a field. Love it. That's dedication. You haven't all got to do that, folks. And then the grid was displayed in the map order. That's an exhibition we had the following year in 2016 upstairs here. Okay, that's how a grid project works. The expected outcomes. Firstly, an online display. Take part in this project. Whatever you submit is going online on the website. It will go in. No curating. No saying, we'll pick a subsection. It's everything goes on. And that will happen as it comes into me. As stuff comes to me, it will go online on the Grid Project website. Secondly, there will be a hardback book. The last number of projects, I've brought a few of them here. We've done hardback books from the project. These are curated. I can't fit a grid project even in. This one's 210 pages long. You can't fit an entire project into one, so I have to be selective. But it's not a profit-making thing. We just order as many books as people want, and so that will happen. That's a cert. There's 3 there if anyone wants to look after. And an exhibition. Now, the exhibition is the hard thing. It's an intended outcome, but there's a couple of reasons why you might or might not get an exhibition. One is, can you find somebody with a gallery that thinks I'm going to put my money on these people and not look a mug if we show this stuff? That's difficult, and galleries work a long way in advance, so it's hard. And the second one, of course, is money, because if you put it on in a gallery, you've got to print stuff big and so forth. Now, it has gone well over the last few years. Since the last Halifax project, I've ended up in these places with exhibitions, and I'm very, that's good fortune, that is. This one, just as an example, was in the project in the footsteps of Phyllis Nicklin, a little-known genius photographer that we did in Birmingham. That exhibition to print cost 6,000 quid. The whole thing didn't cost 6,000, it cost more than that. But if you're going to go for 2 metre square printouts and stuff, it's going to cost. So my job over the next year while we're doing this project is find some funding, and I'll be on with that. So there's no guarantee of an exhibition. Writing. 2 projects ago in this project, the B4 HS2. By the way, it sounds a bit cryptic. B4 Birmingham 4 postcode, B4 as in previously, HS2. We photographed the east side area of Birmingham just before they started work on the HS2 station, because I thought this is going to be historic, this is a moment in time, they're going to want, so you get the idea. Well, on that one, not only did I ask people to take photographs at grid points, I asked them to make a statement about it, to write about it. I got a wide variety of results, from mere captions to people that wrote in 2 A4 pages, but they wrote something that was meaningful to them. Dave Moore took that photograph in Allison Street and said, railway and canal architecture really defined Birmingham's industrial look and identity. This architecture plays a significant part of my memories of growing up in Birmingham. These railway tunnels were usually dark, dirty and unlit, and they were a magnet to the not yet invented young urban explorer. They were scary and exciting, a place where decent and so on. And so writing went into that project. People liked it. I've decided captions are good. They're really good. They even use them in most art galleries now. If you go into London, and so writing came into the Grid project. Then, in 21, invited by Professor Jackie Hodgson at Warwick University to do a project down there in collaboration with Warwick, and because it was the year of the City of Culture down there. And Jackie Hodgson had this idea. Well, she did research. In fact, the research was done by Georgie Evans, who is with us now. Georgie is a writer and photographer. And she, from the research of interviewing people about emerging from lockdown and the feelings about that, created a narrative, a story. I think you'd call it fictional, wouldn't it? Yeah, it was, even though it was based on real research, it was fictional, and made it into a video. This is Jackie's idea, not mine. A video where the grid photographer's pictures were a backdrop to Georgie's narrative. It's 12 minutes long, but I'm just going to play the first 2 minutes just as an example.
I am about to serve a customer when I notice an elderly man who I've never seen before. He's got one hand on the door handle and he's standing, peering inside the cafe, and then he turns and carries on down the street. Putting the plastic behind them, I say, people are doing that. They run away when we're busy, they don't want to come in. I pause. I watch the customer through her mask over her nose. That's £6.50, please. She hands over the money and tells me she is allowed to be using cash again. She got a really anxious to pay for everything. I can't. I nod. Agreement. She looks around, searching for the table that will make her feel the most tucked away. As she's walking across the cafe, someone else walks up to the counter and asks, "What happened to the security?" "Sorry, security?" I ask. "Counting people in and out," he says. "No, not here. It's just a cafe." He huffs, heads back to his table, and I hear him grumbling about lockdown and policing and numbers and stats, and I shake my head, get back to work. The cafe has been wonderfully open for a few months. It's not odd at first to dust off the tables and chairs, wash down the tablecloths, got a bottle of hand sanitizer at every table. But on the first day, it was hectic. I had to turn people away. But it calmed down, when people found other places to go, like the restaurants that had reopened with fancy shelters separating their tables. Sometimes I'd sit in the cafe for hours without a single customer here. Just me, the coffee machine, bubbling away sadly behind me. Now, most of my employees are back. They fill up the tables, sitting separately but enjoying the little noises of people in the same physical space. A couple of the old faces, they haven't returned. I don't know what they are. If they're still in the city, if they are keeping themselves safe from the disease behind walls and windows, or no. I'm not going to think about what else might happen to them.
Okay, so words in that project became a big thing, and that was well received. That video was so I want to keep writing in this project, and I did specifically ask people who do poetry and writing to respond to the things that the photographers are responding to. So what's this grid project? So it is different. That's not the title. I've been doing research on urban photography and what even the word urban means for the last year, and that's actually the title of a book called The Image of the City, 1960 by Kevin Lynch, which is a work of genius, other than the typography on the front of the cover. And Kevin Lynch was a lecturer at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology who had worked with Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect, and then spent 6 years researching what made people happy when they live in an urban environment, what makes them feel okay about it. And the image of the city that is in the title is an image that we keep in our heads and don't think about, but makes a big difference to how happy we feel in our environments, in our day-to-day, getting around the place. So it's not just a map, it's not just about knowing I know where things are in my town. It's bigger than that. It encompasses security, fear, knowingness about even what a certain place could feel like in terms of its busyness or its smells and so forth. And if a town has a good image, a strong image, one that we can comprehend well, then people feel happy in that town. They don't go around going, I feel happy. It's a much deeper thing than that. It's the opposite of living in an environment where you might feel like you're going to get disoriented or lost. Here's a quote from it, just about being lost. To become completely lost is perhaps a rather rare experience for most people in the modern city. We're supported by the presence of others and by special wayfinding devices, maps, street numbers, route signs, bus placards. But let the mishap of disorientation once occur, and the sense of anxiety that accompanies it reveals to us how closely it's linked to our sense of balance and well-being. If we've got a strong image of our town, our city, it gives that sense of balance and well-being. Another couple of little quotes at the other end of the spectrum. A good environmental image gives its possessor an important sense of emotional security. A legible city would be one whose districts or landmarks or pathways, for pathways read roads, something like that, are easily identifiable and easily grouped into an overall pattern. And his research revealed these things, that the things that really make a difference to how people feel is the strength of the image or identity of paths. That would include roads, railway lines, canals, things that you move along. Landmarks, self-explanatory. Districts that have defining features or characteristics. One estate is different to another estate, one locality is different because of their defining features. Nodes, which are concentrations of stuff, busy stuff, and edges. I won't go into all of them now because the first shoot's about roads, about paths. But those things together are the things that matter, and that's why I'm basing this grid project on those headings, because of that research. Now, I was banging on about this, as I do, to my friend Graham Maslin over at Curry. And he's a geographer himself, so he's got a bit of an affinity with this. And he said, oh, you're in search of urban happiness. Too right, mate. That's the title for this project, In Search of Urban Happiness. And I've used, some of you will have seen, I've used on social media that image for this project. Of course, it's used ironically. That's not the kind of happiness I'm on about. That's the kind of happiness that says, I'll be happy if I live in a pretty bungalow with flowers and I've got trees around and low crime and my children safe to play outside. That's one kind of happiness. The kind of happiness we're actually talking about here is that sense of understanding our locality and our surroundings, and having an image, a strong image in our head. So I want to start with paths as the first part of this project. So I'm going to try and get 4 more meetings like this for these. Hiya.
Would you say that happiness is familiarity?
I would say there's a strong connection between happiness and familiarity, yeah. I don't know if that's what Kevin Lynch would say exactly, but that's what I feel. It is that it's that sense of knowing and know what this place is about. So good question, yes. Yeah. So paths. Paths, Kevin Lynch defines as, paths are the channels which, along which the observer customarily, occasionally or potentially moves. They may be streets, walkways, a path can go through a shopping centre, transit lines, canals, railroads. For many people, these are the predominant elements in the image. So we're dealing with what we could call now paths. I used the word roads earlier, so just to be clear. So the question becomes, What gives a path a strong image? What gives it an image that's good? If it's a strong image, if a road, say, or a canal has a strong sense of identity, that's going to be a good thing. It's going to make people feel good. So these are the things. Specialised use or features, easily identifiable facades, those two sort of go together. A directional quality, I'll show you in a minute. Strong start and end points to a path. Visual exposure of the path while you're on it, meaning I'm on a road and I can see exactly where this road goes. Or visual exposure of the path from other places. I can see that road very clearly from elsewhere and it gives me a better idea about where I am and so forth. Looking at the first two, specialised use or features, what does that look like if a path is strong in its identity? Well, it looks like this. There's Shaftesbury Avenue in London. It's got a strong identity. Its use is very pronounced. It's Theatreland. And the facades all shout out, I'm in Theatreland. And that's what you would call a strong path with a strong identity. If I jump to Halifax, this is Queen's Road. The middle section of Queen's Road has a very strong identity. It has a retail area where it's one shop after. There are one or two other things, medical centres and so forth, but there's one shop after another. It's a path with a very clear and strong identity. I'd say it's probably the strongest retail identity outside of the town centre. Directional quality, what does that mean? You feel that you know, if you move along a path and the clues come as you go that I'm about to get somewhere, then that gives you a strong identity, such as, okay, these slides will move on automatically. I went to New York with my lad and we decided to walk from Times Square there, where the buildings are humongous and so forth, and it's all televisions. It's as bright at night as it is at daytime, and walk until we got to the end of Broadway. And as you walk along, the bright lights stop, the buildings become lower, they become far more local and vernacular. You could almost be dropped in on Broadway in New York and kind of know where you were by just taking a quick look around you. Very much vernacular as you get down towards Battery Park at the end of Broadway. The buildings do actually go up again after that, but I haven't got photographs. So that's a path with a graduation that lets you know where you are. Let's go from Broadway to Boothtown. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed making that slide. Because Boothtown will give you an example of a path with a graduation on it. From the town centre, there are frequent points where you know where you are. I know I'm virtually in town because there's that car dealership, there's the big high-rise flats and so on. And they're spaced closely together, and only a few yards past that KFC, there's a supermarket and a garage, and we know how far we are along that road, and the road changes because the further you go along it, the things that you recognise get further and further apart, and there is a sense of I'm moving along this path, and the shop fronts halfway up there, some historic buildings around Croydon, and the things get further and further apart. And it's got another graduation in that tells you where you are. It's going up, isn't it? And so you're starting to get these views as you go into the landscape. You're also starting to get, and so that's a road where there's a very strong graduation, even if it doesn't have the singularity of use that, say, the middle section of Queen's Road has. Strong start and end points to any path. Now this path I'm going to show you isn't just one road, it's several. It's a bus route. I'm doing some Birmingham examples. I'm going to use this talk in Birmingham next week. The 50 bus route, it's either that or a bus route in Manchester, which is the most frequently used bus route in Europe, so it's well known. This is the start point. It's where you get the bus in town. It's outside Selfridges in the Bullring. If we could see just out of shot, there's the biggest Primark in Europe, just sitting around the corner. It's a very strong, notable starting point. At the other end of the path, there's the Maypole Island. Now, this may mean nothing to you, but the island is the last place in Birmingham. If you go out those two roads on the right, you're either going into Worcestershire or Warwickshire. The houses will stop dead, not like Halifax. Halifax has a different, interesting vibe about what's countryside and what's not. So it's the end of the road in the sense, and there's a very big Sainsbury's there as a sort of end point. And before there was Sainsbury's, there was a well-known pub that was there that was a very strong end point. So strong paths often have strong starting or end points. Visual exposure of the path while you're on it. This means you can see the path you're on for some distance ahead, maybe. And here's an example, it's one I like very much. I know when I'm home, when I go across that brow of that little hill on Spaghetti Junction, and all of a sudden I can see the Aston Expressway, which goes from the M6 all the way into town, non-stop, very fast unless it's gridlocked. And I can see that path, and I can even see it going off to the left, and it's almost pointing me, that's where I'm going, the town centre up there. It's got some other notable landmarks from here as well. There's Aston Church and the Villa Park booth. So we can see the path from when you're on it. The other one was visual exposure of the path. You can see it from other places. Let's take Burdock Way in Halifax. And there are a lot of places you can see Burdock Way from, even when you're not on Burdock Way. And it even crosses other roads, but we can still, its presence, the strength of its image is very much there. That's about 100 yards down the road, there past the car park. So how it all works. I'll get my slide right in a second. Here we go. What I've done is I've divided Halifax up into 5 areas. That's our map. Going clockwise, one would be Alvenden, Illingworth. There's 2 which include Banktop. 3 down here as you go down towards Greenland and Westvale and Elland. 4 includes Norton Tower, whole residential area, and 5 going up towards Mixel. Divided them into 5 areas. So that's our map we're going to work from. The maps are on the website. So I'll give you a copy of that map, but on the website, that's the Halifax schematic map, it's there. And then there's a Halifax detail map that we might want, because we're going to choose which path we're going to use. We might need to see some detail. So I've done that one, much more accurate. You might be thinking I can't see it, but it's a PDF that's in high res. So online, it can be zoomed and you can see right down to individual road level. So what I'm proposing is, this is what we do. 1, we choose one of those areas. 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, just choose one. Might be one you know. Sorry, I forgot an important point. I don't know if you can, yes you can see. All these paths and areas have got a different colour. The centre is left white. The centre belongs to all 5 areas. Okay, it's common ground. What to do? Choose an area. Decide upon a path. Could be a road, railway line, canal, or some other kind of path, like a bus route. In part of a path. Tell me by email. Now this is you telling me I like this area and I'm going to do this path. Make your response, that is take photographs, write something, send your response to me, I put it online. That's the overall way the thing works. Choosing an area. You choose from 1 to 5 as on the map. Now we're going to do all of those 5 headings over 1 year. And if you're taking part and you're going to stick it out, and I hope you will, I want people to be, there must be a minimum of 3 different areas done over the project. So if you do area 1 3 times, then I need another 2 to get you to 3 minimum areas. You can do it how you like, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, or even spread yourself about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But a minimum of 3 areas. This is to ensure the coverage of the lot. Decide upon a path, typically a road, railway or canal. Might be a known bus route, might be a rat run. It might have, it might be a road, a number of roads that have different names, but they're a route that people use, or a bridleway even. It could be a section of a known path, e.g. I mentioned the middle section of Queen's Road with all its retail. You can go beyond the area boundary if necessary. So if you get to the edge of the map and think, if I just went another quarter of a mile, I'd take a photograph that I really want. Well, it can be done, but obviously don't go into the centre of Huddersfield or Bradford, that's a different project. It can go beyond the area boundary. What I mean by that is, so let's say I've done Queen's Road, and I get to the end, and Pelham Lane is not in my area, but it's at the end of Queen's Road. Can I not go across the road and take a photograph because it's not in my area? No, you can. You can bust the area just slightly to get a picture of your path. Google Street View will be absolutely useful for checking this out in advance. This needs a bit of preparation. Like a photography student might do a shoot plan. Google Street View lets you walk around places and say, do I want to do this? Is this interesting for me? And for photographers, it suits working in pairs, I think. It really suits working in pairs because there'll be some discussion about what are the strong things on this path. And perhaps better say at this point, we're not just doing illustrations for Kevin Lynch's book, The Image of the City. It's not as slavish as that. These are just things to be aware of when we're on a path. So you choose a path in an area. You tell me which area, which path. You email me at thegridprojectuk@gmail.com. That's a new email address. Now, could you add me as a contact on your email? The reason is I like to send things out blind, BCC, so that everybody can't see everybody else's email address. Yeah, no worries. I don't like to show everybody else's email address, but if I'm not a contact of yours, sometimes blind emails go into spam. So add me as a contact. And then I'll list it on the website, whatever you've chosen. Now, I don't want to I'm lucky boy. I've got you all here today and I'm so grateful of that. But I'm very aware of that. I've got to keep this, it's my job to keep the momentum going there. I want you to decide by next Sunday, sorry, I want you to look and think and say, right, what I'm going to choose as my road, that'll force you into it. Please. So you make your response, meaning you visit your path. This project is 2023, so don't visit it before the 1st of January. It's a 2023 project. I want to be able to say that this is a moment in time. This is Halifax at a moment in time. If we bust it and go out at Christmas, people will know. You get found out on these things. So it's 2023. Take photos, your photo essay, or maybe make notes if you're a writer. It depends how you work as a writer. Just want to branch off to 2 little small issues, Google issues. We don't want to be just doing Google Street View, but with a camera. That's Google Street View. We don't want to just be standing in the middle of the road down this. I don't know, walk down this path and take some photographs like Google Street View does. Because apart from anything else, Google Street View, the relevant parts of that photograph are actually in the middle section. Below the middle section, it's actually quite irrelevant, and above it, it's not a vantage point that will always work. And I'm not saying you must never use that vantage point, but the Google Street View vantage point isn't always useful. Secondly, I got somebody a few weeks ago, when I was banging on about the project again, said, couldn't you just do this with Google Street View? So I think it's obvious that you couldn't, but just for the record, Dave Moore's photograph of Allison Street, Google Street View, the nearest I could make it to the position that Dave Moore was in, but I couldn't go low down. I couldn't choose to do it at night. And of course, Dave Moore's photograph is so atmospheric and full of textures atmosphere that Street View can't do. Here's another one. It's actually taken from exactly the same spot, but the camera's looking in a different direction. And that one on the right is the Street View one, whereas the grid photograph is the one on the left, which is all grungy and full of texture and interest. I'm not saying we can't do aesthetically interesting photographs. I actually want aesthetically interesting photographs. Here's my hero, Bernice Abbott, photographed New York in the 1930s. And her photographs of a tenement house with clotheslines. It may be documentary and showing what New York's about, but it's also extremely aesthetically interesting with its patterns and so forth. Great photography. Why did I put this on? So that's the Google issue, the law thing. On the website there is a PDF of photography and the law if you want to read it, but the big issue is this. If you're in a public place, if you're on public land, you can take a photograph. It's the law, you can. Can I point the camera at another person? Yes. You absolutely can. Even their 4-year-old girl. That's the law. Of course, there's another law at work here. It's an unwritten law that says somebody might smack you. So we just, play sensible. I've not had many problems over the years, but security people and the police often don't know the law. I don't know if anyone's ever come across this, but I have many times. They don't know the law. They're getting better. Me and Karen were in Birmingham on the B4 HS2 project. I was photographing that borderline you couldn't cross, you couldn't get into the HS2 site. So I got my camera, big iron gates, hole where the padlock was, take my lens hood off, I could get my camera through, click. It was moments, wasn't it, before high-vis came. Hello, what are you doing here then? The gateway I'd gone through was slightly off the road. It was just recessed back off the road, and I was literally on HS2 land. So the law was, I couldn't take a photograph if they said not. And I checked him out on it. He was really polite and nice. I said, so if I stood there, can I take this photograph? And he went, yeah. And I thought, wow, he knows the law. They're getting better at it. Okay, send me your prose or poetry. Send me your photos. If it's prose or poetry, by email, that's fine. Words don't take up much digital space. If it's photos, they take up a lot of space, and it messes up your email and mine if you just send them in an email. It needs to be using WeTransfer.com. If anybody needs any help with that, give me a shout. Photos for your photo essay of your path, between 5 and 10. So it's a small thing. It's not, you might take 50, but send me 5 to 10. Square. All grid projects have always done the most neutral format you can, square. Also, I can't cope with multiple formats when it comes to the book, the website, or the exhibition, unless my life becomes hell. So square. Photographs can be black and white or colour, don't mind. Photographs can be processed by yourself if you want and if you do. But if not, they can be processed by me. For example, if you're using a mobile, you don't know how to get it square, send them me, I'll do it. And I've got a deadline for this first shoot, the last day of Feb, 28th of Feb. So we've got 28 days from the 1st of Jan to do the path. Send me images, file names. This is on a bit of paper because it's quite important. And I'm going to get hundreds of pictures from both Halifax and Birmingham. It could go into thousands this time. I can end up in a right hole to do if I'm not careful. I would like, if you are able to name your files, I'd like your file names to be in this format. If they're pictures, HX, your name, section number, that's the area of Halifax, path title, just give you the title, and a sequence. You might be sending me between 5 and 10, so a sequence letter, A, B, C, D, E. Example, HX, Dave Allen, area 2, I'm on Burdock Way, A, my next one will be B, and so forth. If it's words, we don't need just as much. HX, your name, section number, path title, doc, or whatever format, as a word format. I've noticed it's almost impossible to proofread things and get rid of all errors. there's an error on this. For the writers in here, it says .jpeg. Of course, don't send me your writing as a JPEG. That's my mistake. Online display, I'll upload the stuff when it comes in. Just so you know, the credit you're going to get. I always credit work. I always embed in the metadata of a photo that it's your copyright. If you don't know, I haven't got time for metadata now, but it's coded into the photograph. And I'll not use anything outside of the grid project. You know, it's your work, and you're kind of lending it me to use in the grid project, but it is yours. I won't use it anywhere outside, but that might include the grid project on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. 40 minutes. Done. So.